All right, for today's video review, we're going to be taking a look at Transformers Cybertron Scout Class Scrapmetal. An interesting little figure here. I picked this guy up from the same local secondhand toy shop that I got GoBots spoons from last week. And yeah, he's a neat little figure, not without issue, but yeah. If you're unfamiliar with who Scrapmetal is, he was from the Cybertron toy line, but in the show itself, he was basically like a another version of like the Viacons or like the Terracons. There was just like a mass-produced drone, so he wasn't really his own individual character. And yeah, this guy came in a few different colors. In the American toy line, I believe that he was only released in the red and the yellow version later, whereas in the Japanese toy line, they also included the blue version, and all three of those showed up in the show. And then what's also kind of interesting is in the Japanese toy line, the name for this guy was Ramble, and because of a little gimmick that he has in robot mode, I think that this is sort of all supposed to be like a, kind of a stand-in facsimile for Rumble and Frenzy, because he does kind of have like a little pile driver gimmick, and he also came in red and blue and yellow, granted. But either way, he's a neat little figure. He turns into this weird little like walking tank mode, which is aren't usually my favorite modes, just because they generally just use the arms and the legs, but I think he kind of pulls it off. I think it's a neat little mode here. He's got a turret up here that can rotate around and hinge up and down. Unfortunately, on mine, it wants to just rotate on this joint instead, because notionally, this panel here is supposed to kind of like tab into this panel that has the head on it, but it kind of just rests in place, and it's not a very loose or not very tight connection. And it sort of feels like at a certain point, it stops kind of like bending up on the hinge, and it starts just sort of like bending up on the pin joint itself. So that kind of contributes to it not totally staying as flat down as it's supposed to. But yeah, if you just hold that in place, then you can rotate this around. And then obviously, he's got articulation at each of the legs here. They're all on ball joints, and then ball joints at the knee, I guess, as well. And because these ones are kind of oriented this way, I usually just leave them in their robot mode configuration where the knee is actually facing properly. But because of how these ones are, rotated, you kind of have to rotate this bit around. So there's kind of a slight variance in how much articulation you can get with these, but not really. But yeah, it's a cute little mode. It's kind of an interesting little alt mode, even if it is, a little weird. But yeah, in terms of his Cyber Planet key gimmick, he comes with just a regular Decepticon Cyber Planet key. And you plug this in here, and basically it flips out this little knife instead of the gun, and you can kind of pull that knife out for him to hold in robot mode, which is kind of neat. But it's also kind of neat to like have it be like a little sort of like bayonet mode. I feel like that looks kind of cool. But yeah, it works well. It's not too obtrusive. It's one of the ones where you can't really activate it without the Cyber Planet key. Like if you can kind of pull this piece back, but it's a bit more annoying than some of them, but it is possible. But yeah, in terms of comparisons in this mode, just for the standard one, here he is with Kingdom Sideswipe, so you can see he looks like an average modern deluxe. And for another Cybertron Scout class figure, here he is with hard top, so you can see what they look like together. To get onto transformation, first thing you want to do is just kind of like take these joints here and just widen them out to the side, and that kind of gives you the clearance to take this piece here, and it'll fold up like that. And I always forget, I think it has to be this way. Yeah, you rotate it like this, so this ends up being a shoulder pad, and this ends up sitting on his other shoulder. And then you can take these pieces and kind of clip them back into place here, so they now clip into this section instead. And you can kind of rotate them around at the elbows here, and then flip these pieces to the like not really underside, I was going to say outside of his arm like that. And then you can kind of widen these pieces just so it untabs from the cockpit section. And then you bring this whole thing up, and then the head kind of loosely tabs into place there. And then you can take these thigh sections, clip them together like that, and get the chest piece sitting in place there. And then you have the little, pincer toes or whatever that you just fold up to be regular robot mode feet. And there you have Scrapmetal in his robot mode. And yeah, he's a cute little robot. I like his aesthetic generally. I like the head sculpt. He's kind of just generic enough that it's like, yeah, could kind of be seen as like a new version of Rumble / Frenzy. it kind of just feels like it's a new character to me. But the one thing that really lends credence to this is if you like leave these flipped out like this, one, you can have this little, thing as a weapon, but you can also flip it out like this, and he actually does have little like pile drivers, kind of. I was like, when I first got this guy last week, I was like looking at this, I was like, why does he have wheels? I don't understand that. They don't even roll. But I do think that these are meant to be like little pile drivers, so you can flip those out. So that, definitely lends credence to the whole, this is kind of meant to be a new version of Rumble and Frenzy. So you can do that. I haven't really gotten any good poses with him, like actually, holding those, but it's an option. It's kind of neat. It's fairly unobtrusive, so cool. In terms of articulation, the head is on a swivel, which you can also rotate it around for transformation if you want, if you don't want him to be just like staring out the bottom of the alt mode. But yeah, it's on a swivel. Then the shoulders are on ball joints, which can rotate around like that. The elbows are on ball joints. Unfortunately, they are kind of gorilla arms here because the wrists don't swivel. So if you actually had the elbows facing forward, one, you'd be seeing that gap, and two, he's kind of doing the like curl. So yeah, he does have the bad kind of gorilla arm elbows, unfortunately. Also, these pieces, especially on this side, have kind of loosened up, so they don't really like to stay tabbed into place there. Nothing at the waist. Hips are on ball joints, which can rotate forward and back and out to the side. It's got ball joints at the knee, which also give him a thigh swivel, and a pretty decent knee bend there. And then the feet can kind of tilt up and down. They can't really tilt any further forward than like they're just like regular resting spot, but they can tilt back for transformation. So, okay articulation. Oh, and obviously the cannon can still kind of rotate around. But I think the main bummer for me for this guy, and honestly probably my least favorite thing about the figure in general, is just the gorilla elbows. Like, that is unfortunate and seems a little unnecessary. Just if you had, the arms rotated the other way and filled in that gap, then that would even make a slightly cleaner robot mode, because then all this stuff would be on the back of his arm rather than on the side. But whatever. Obviously, you can still activate the Cyber Planet key gimmick and have that going on in this mode. And then if you want, you can take this little knife and you have to pull it out of this section. It is kind of keyed to go in there, so it only goes in one way. So you shouldn't try to like wiggle it out like that. You have to just kind of pull it straight out. And then you can give them this little knife as a weapon, which is pretty cool. And unfortunately, you can't reclose this while the knife isn't there, because this is, the knife is actually the thing that latches in. So it just has like this weird sort of like awkward hanging cannon while he's holding that. But it's kind of cool looking. It just doesn't really look like anything in particular, but at least the blade is kind of cool. I like that it actually has like serrated edges here on the back. I think that's neat. But yeah, pretty cool little gimmick there. His is, I think, one of the better Cyber Planet key gimmicks. Oh my gosh, struggling today. But yeah, in terms of comparisons in this mode, just for some standard ones, here he is again with Kingdom Sideswipe, and here he is with Kingdom Soundwave, so you can see what he looks like with an average core class as well. Like I've said before, the Scouts are kind of a little bit bigger than core classes are now, but same general idea there. And just for posterity's sake, here he is again with Cybertron Hardtop, so you can see what he looks like with another Cybertron Scout. But yeah, that's pretty much all there is to say about this guy. Not that of an exciting figure. He's cute. He's got a nice looking robot mode. His tank mode is weird, but it's interesting. I wish that the elbows were facing another direction. I wish that these pieces were a little bit tighter. I wish that this locked into place a little bit better in alt mode. But otherwise, he's pretty cool, pretty inoffensive, whatever. But yeah, that's pretty much all there is to them. If you enjoy my videos, make sure to leave a like and consider subscribing to the channel. I do reviews every Tuesday, Thursday, and Sunday. And without further ado, here we have Transformers Cybertron Scout Class Scrapmetal.